Simon from Great Yarmouth, England. Which wrestler during the 90s did not quite live up to your expectations? For me, it would be Tatanka. I really saw him as someone that would hold the IC title and then maybe go on to WWE title contendership. Something just seemed to fizzle out with him. Is there someone you liked and had high hopes for that did not quite live up to your expectations? Well, if we're talking WWE from the 90s, two names that come to mind would be Vader and Brian Pillman. Now, Brian Pillman is obvious because he got hurt. He had that Humvee wreck, and he was physically, he was never the same after that. So Pillman came in with a lot of fanfare. Even after he had the injury and the accident, they had this big mock press conference with him. They really tried to make it out like this was a big signing. I knew of his work in WCW, so I kind of Flying Brian, and I knew the kind of wrestler he was. And then he was very limited in what he could do. In fact, he didn't even wrestle for many, many more months after that initial press conference. I think probably until the following year because he needed, I think, a second surgery. So he was all kinds of fucked up from the injury, and we never got to see the real Brian Pillman in WWE. And I think that's a real shame, especially when Steve Austin won the championship. The most obvious contender, first contender for that title, the most obvious program for him coming out of WrestleMania 14 should have been Stone Cold against the loose cannon, Brian Pillman. And I would have even considered putting the title on Pillman at some point and having him maybe trade it back and forth with Steve Austin, keep playing the loose cannon character. But unfortunately, he was just never the same after that wreck. So that's why that was disappointing. Vader was disappointing in that I knew of Vader from WCW. I knew some of those hard-hitting matches he had with Cactus Jack. He had great matches with Sting and the Starrcade match with Ric Flair. Even then, I saw a lot of that. I knew of that. I would see him come out on WCW Saturday night and break jobbers in half and all that thing. And he came in. And initially, those first two nights, I thought they did a great job with Vader. Vader came into the Royal Rumble. Yeah, he got eliminated, but he came back in. He just threw Shawn Michaels out of the ring. He was knocking people out left and right. The next night, they did that great angle where he attacked Gorilla Monsoon, which nobody did. And he laid out Gorilla Monsoon. They suspended him. He had a shoulder injury. That's why they did that. He had to go away for a while and have shoulder surgery. Then he came back early, which he admits. He came back early from the injury. He made it back in time for WrestleMania 12. He was part of some six-man tag to open the show. But he was never really the same. And I think part of it may have been the fact that that shoulder maybe never healed as well or as quickly as it should have because he came back too soon. And then politics also played a role in it. You've heard the stories about Shawn Michaels kind of shitting on him, and Vader was, and Jim Cornette, I think, has said that Vader, maybe not SummerSlam, but Vader was supposed to win the championship at Survivor Series at Madison Square Garden, and instead, plans changed, and they went with Sid instead. And it's one of those things, I still can't explain why Sid was as over as he was. I don't know unless you were a WWF fan at the time, as I was back in 96. When Sid came back the second half of the year, he had been gone. And he had come and been gone and, came and went and came and went. And he came back, and for whatever reason, in late 96, Sid was over like gangbusters. The people just saw him as a superstar. And he came out there in front of Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series that November, and they cheered the hell out of him, and they booed Shawn Michaels. But that whole period, Sid, wherever he went, was super over. And I can't explain it. I mean, I guess Sid had a certain charisma about him, but I can't really tell you why all of a sudden he was that popular. So I'm not even going to sit here and say they made the wrong decision. You know what? Maybe they didn't make the wrong decision. They went with their hot hand at the time. Sid was their hot hand. But Vader got fucked over. Vader should have had a monster run with that title. He probably should have beaten Shawn at SummerSlam, is really what should have happened. And they didn't do it. And that was disappointing because Vader never went on to do much of anything after that. You look at the way Vader's run went in 98, it was an embarrassment. They had Vader lose to Kane in, I think it was Kane, right? In early 98. And cut an interview outside the ring. Michael Cole comes up to him, and Vader literally, live on the air, calls himself a fat piece of shit. And he walks off. That was coming straight from the back. That's probably what people thought of him in the back. Hey, let's have Vader go out there and call himself a fat piece of shit on TV. That'll be fun. And by the middle of the year, he was gone. He was like a job guy almost at that point. Vader. Big Van Vader. The Mastodon. All those classic matches and feuds he had in WCW ends up as a jobber in WWE. So Vader and Brian Pillman are two of the biggest disappointments in that company to me in the 90s.